Imagine waking up one morning and finding out that a foreign government had named an entire week after you. Not because you won a championship. Not because you broke a record. Just because of who you are and what you represent to millions of people who love you so deeply they crossed entire oceans just to sit in the same arena and watch you play tennis. That is exactly what happened to a 19-year-old girl from Manila, and if you think you already know this story, I promise you, you do not. Alex Eala. Remember that name because whether you follow tennis or not, what unfolded in Austria over the course of 7 days is one of those rare human stories that transcends sport entirely. It gets into something much deeper. Something about identity, about pride, about what happens when a nation that has been waiting a very long time for a moment like this finally gets one. Let's go back to the beginning because context here is everything. Alex was born in Manila in 2005, in a country where tennis is not the national sport, where world-class athletic infrastructure is genuinely hard to come by, and where the statistical probability of producing a top-tier Grand Slam competitor sits somewhere between unlikely and nearly impossible. And yet, by the time she was 14 years old, she had caught the attention of one of the most prestigious training academies on the planet, the Rafa Nadal Academy in Mallorca, Spain. Think about that for a second. A girl from Manila, handpicked by the institution built around one of the greatest tennis players who ever lived. She packed her bags, moved to Spain, and started training alongside some of the most gifted young players in all of Europe. She absorbed everything. The footwork, the mental discipline, the relentless physical conditioning that defines the Nadal philosophy. And then she started winning. Junior Grand Slam titles. ITF titles. Her ranking began climbing in that steady, unmistakable way that only happens when genuine talent meets an almost obsessive work ethic. Back home in the Philippines, people were paying attention. They were always paying attention. Because here is something you genuinely need to understand before the rest of this story makes full sense. The Philippines is a nation of over 100 million people with a capacity for collective pride that is almost impossible to describe to someone who hasn't felt it firsthand. When a Filipino succeeds on the world stage, it does not feel like one person's victory. It feels like everyone's victory. Every family watching from a small apartment in Quezon City, every overseas worker catching highlights on a phone in the middle of a night shift abroad, every kid in a province who has never held a tennis racket in their life. They all feel it. Personally. Deeply. In a way that defies easy explanation. Alex understood this weight. She had been carrying it for years. And she carried it with a quiet grace that honestly makes you stop and think about what it means to be 19 years old with an entire country's dreams resting on your shoulders. Now here is where the story shifts into something no one in the tennis world was prepared for. The Upper Austria Ladies Linz Tournament. A respectable WTA event. Solid, professional, well-organized. The kind of tournament that typically draws a polite European crowd, good tennis, good atmosphere, nothing extraordinary. Then the Filipino fan groups started organizing. It started in group chats. Hundreds of members. Then thousands. Facebook events shared across communities. Coordination threads on Twitter and Instagram where fans from different provinces and different countries started comparing flight prices, mapping out transportation routes from Vienna, pooling information about affordable accommodations near the venue. Filipino communities already living across Europe mobilized first. Filipinos based in Spain, Germany, Italy, the UK, the Netherlands. They formed the first wave. Then came the direct flights from Manila. Then the connecting flights through Dubai, Doha, Singapore. And they just kept coming. By the time the first serve of the tournament was scheduled, something was already happening in Linz that the organizers had absolutely no framework for processing. The accreditation lines looked different. The noise in the stands sounded different. Sections of the crowd that had in previous years been occupied by quiet Austrian locals sipping coffee were now a rolling sea of Philippine flags. Handmade banners. Matching shirts with Alex's face printed on them. And actual drums. People had somehow transported drums into the venue, and when Alex walked onto the court for her first match, the sound that came out of the Filipino section did not just fill the stadium. It transformed it. Chants in Tagalog bounced off the walls. The drum beats gave the whole thing a rhythm that made it feel less like a tennis match and more like a cultural celebration happening inside a sporting event. Other players warming up on nearby courts stopped what they were doing and looked over. Tournament officials exchanged glances that said, in no uncertain terms, "We were not ready for this." Local Austrian spectators who had never heard anything like it in their lives pulled out their phones and started filming. By day 2, every hotel within 40 kilometers of the venue was fully booked. Restaurants that normally served quiet European dinners were suddenly packed wall to wall with large, loud, joyful groups of Filipino fans ordering everything on the menu. Local souvenir shops ran out of stock. Transportation services reported booking numbers they usually only see during the Christmas market season. And the economic data, when it started coming in, was genuinely staggering. Ticket sales for the tournament had jumped by more than 400% compared to the previous year. Sessions featuring Alex sold out within hours. Organizers had to move her matches to a larger venue just to try and meet demand, and even that 5,000-seat space filled up faster than anyone anticipated. The Austrian Tourism Board released their preliminary figures midway through the week, and the numbers stopped people in their tracks. Over 40,000 visitors with confirmed ties to Filipino fan groups had entered Austria during those 7 days. Hotel occupancy in the region hit its highest level in recorded history for that time of year, surpassing the numbers typically generated by major music festivals and cultural events that Austria relies on for peak tourism revenue. A regional Austrian newspaper ran a front-page headline that roughly translated to, "The Filipinos are here and our economy has never been happier." A local tourism official gave a television interview in which she used the word unprecedented 4 times in 6 minutes and seemed to mean it more each time she said it. Restaurant owners were calling their accountants just to confirm the numbers were real. And the merchandise situation inside the tournament grounds was something else entirely. Official Alex merchandise sold out so fast that fans had essentially built their own informal economy around it, trading and selling homemade Eala-themed products through the crowd with a kind of grassroots efficiency that would have impressed a supply chain consultant. Through all of this, the flags, the drums, the sold-out hotels, the overwhelmed local businesses, the government reports being quietly drafted in the background, Alex was simply playing tennis. Focused, disciplined, carrying the weight the same way she always had. But the story had grown well beyond the court by now, and it was about to reach its most dramatic moment. On the 5th day of the tournament, a regional Austrian government official stood in front of press and tournament stakeholders and made an announcement. The week would be officially declared Alex Eala Week in the region. A formal declaration. Documented. The reasoning, as the official explained it, was actually quite simple. The economic and cultural contribution of the Filipino fans to the local community had been so significant, so genuinely impactful, that it warranted formal recognition. The declaration was framed as a thank you to the fans, to their passion, and to the young woman whose talent had inspired 40,000 people to cross the world. Within hours, the Philippines exploded. Social media filled with the kind of collective joy that only emerges when an entire nation feels truly seen all at the same moment. The declaration was shared millions of times. Filipino celebrities posted about it. News anchors in Manila announced it with emotion they were visibly not trying very hard to hide. For so many Filipinos watching from home, it felt like something larger than tennis. It felt like acknowledgement. It felt like, finally, the world is paying attention. But not everyone felt that way. And this is where the story gets genuinely complicated. Within the same hours that Filipinos were celebrating, European tennis commentators began raising questions. Pointed, carefully worded questions. Was it appropriate for a government body to issue a formal declaration honoring a player who had not actually won the tournament? Were there local Austrian players, European players, who had achieved significant results at that same venue over the years without receiving anything comparable? One European commentator put it bluntly. You do not name a week after a player because their fans spent money in your hotels. You name a week after a player because they changed the sport. And look, that argument is not without some logic. But Filipino voices fired back, and they had their own logic, and honestly it landed. European tennis has a long and very well-documented history of celebrating European players with honorary ceremonies, naming rights, and official recognition based on cultural significance, not just athletic record. Local heroes across the continent have received formal tributes at venues based on what they mean to their communities, not just their statistics. So why exactly was a different standard being applied here? That question hung in the air, and the commentators raising the original objections found themselves struggling to answer it cleanly. Inside Austria itself, the reaction was more layered than either camp of the international debate was giving it credit for. Some Austrians were genuinely moved by the whole thing, by the energy, the joy, the economic windfall for local businesses. A local Austrian musician was so struck by the sound of Filipino drums echoing through the tournament grounds that he wrote a short composition inspired by it and posted it online, where it accumulated hundreds of thousands of views. But other Austrian voices expressed something quieter. Not hostility, not resentment, more like bewilderment, the feeling of a community that had been briefly overtaken by an energy it hadn't anticipated and was still figuring out how to feel about. One Austrian shopkeeper near the venue gave a local interview that stuck with me more than almost anything else in this whole story. "It was wonderful for business," she said. "But I want to be honest. My town felt different that week. I am still deciding how I feel about all of it." There is something in that honesty that neither the jubilant Filipino posts nor the pointed European commentary quite captured. The truth of what happened in Austria was never going to be simple. It was a collision of cultures, economies, sporting politics, national pride, and genuine human emotion all compressed into 7 days in a mid-sized Austrian city. And then there was Alex herself. Because through all of it, she was still the one person who had to actually walk into a room, face a microphone, and say something. She thinks before she speaks. In a sports media world that rewards hot takes and emotional reactions, she moves with a deliberate calm that can read as wisdom or evasion depending on who you ask. At her post-match press conference after the declaration was announced, she paused. Not awkwardly, thoughtfully. And then she said, "I am really grateful, but I think this belongs to the fans more than it belongs to me. They are the ones who came. They are the ones who made this happen. I just tried to play good tennis." It was generous. It was measured. It was also, if you were paying close attention, a very careful answer from someone who understood exactly how much weight the moment was carrying. The debate around the declaration continued for days after the tournament ended. A prominent European sports journalist published a full piece arguing that the gesture set a troubling precedent, one where economic influence, not sporting achievement, determined the honors a player received. The argument was articulate and worth engaging with seriously. If another player brought 40,000 fans who generated record tourism revenue, would they get a declaration too? What were the actual criteria? Did the criteria matter, or was this simply a human moment that deserved to be celebrated without being dissected? And honestly, both of those questions can be true at the same time. That is the uncomfortable thing about a story like this. It does not resolve cleanly. There is no moment where one side is completely right and the other is completely wrong. What you are left with is something messier and more honest than that. A 19-year-old girl from Manila, trained by one of the greatest academies in the world, carried to a small Austrian city by the love of 40,000 people, honored in a way no tennis player had ever been honored before, and then immediately dropped into the middle of a debate about whether she deserved it. And through all of it, she just kept playing tennis. That might actually be the most remarkable part of the whole thing. Not the declaration. Not the economic numbers. Not the flags or the drums or the sold-out hotels. The fact that in the middle of all that noise, Alex stayed exactly who she has always been. Focused, grateful, carrying the weight with that quiet, extraordinary grace. Whatever happens next in her career, and based on what she has shown so far, a lot is going to happen next. This week in Austria will follow her. As proof that something about her already reaches people in a way that statistics cannot fully capture. 40,000 people do not cross oceans for statistics. They cross oceans for something they feel. And whatever that thing is, Alex Eala has it.